I was born January the 16th, 1923. I graduated from high school in 1942, and I enlisted in the Airborne in November 1942. I served in that Airborne then from 42 to 45, and like I say, I graduated from Johnstown. I got married after we got home. I have a daughter and 3 sons. We've been married, my wife and I've been 72 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I've had a good life. I've got some real fine children and a good wife.
It's always a good thing to have.
Oh, absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
Well, I joined the Airborne 1942, and with a lot of restrictions. You couldn't get in unless you enlist. You had to volunteer to get in. When I enlisted on November the 28th, they took us to Camp Toccoa, Georgia, and we stayed there about 3 or 4 weeks at Camp Toccoa before we was then transferred to Camp Blanding, Florida, and that's where we did our basic training. You know, our basic training, mostly people notice that. But after we made our training at Fort Benning, we are at Camp Blanding. We went to Fort Benning. That's where we packed our own chutes, and made 5 practice jumps to become a paratrooper. Well, usually when you become a paratrooper, you get a furlough home, but instead of taking a furlough home, I decided to go to demolition school to work with high explosives, and compass school, and airplane identification, anything that might help me in a war. So I went home, and I was home for 5 days, and that's the only furlough I had in the 3 years I was in the service. Well, I came back, went to Camp McCall, North Carolina. Now, we trained in the swamps thinking we were going to go to the Pacific. I can tell you, I don't know whether you want me to do it or not, but we was trained in the swamps one night, and it was raining real bad. And Colton and I got in our pup tent, shelter house, and I wrote 2 paragraphs to a song. I don't know whether you want to hear it or not.
Go ahead, Don.
Well, I'll do what I can. I got a little something in my throat, but it goes like this. Far across the Pacific to the island of Japan, we got a score to settle, and the time is now at hand. We're gonna send the paratroops to sail across the sea to make this country safe for those who love democracy. Hear the airplane motors humming, hear the angry bullets whine. We're gonna send the paratroops to slaughter all the swine. Then know their days are numbered when the paratroops round them fall. We'll send this message to them with the troopers from McCall. I did that. Took me all night to write that. And you know what? Over the years, I didn't think much about it. One time I sang that for a television interview. I got 4,000 hits in one day.
Wow.
Wanting the song,
That's great.
And so there's a group in Nashville, Tennessee, that sings that song. It's beautiful the way they do it. My son's got it on the computer. When I go out and talk, he plays it. Boy, they're good. But I get a kick out of that because then we wind up going we went to Camp Shanks, New York, as we did our training in Camp McCall. And there we went across the Atlantic. They told us then that instead of going to the Pacific, we was going to Europe. Well, at that time, you know, the Wolfpack, that was the German submarines, were pretty heavy. They were sinking a lot of our ships. And in fact, they were sinking some of our ships about 2 or 3 miles off our coast. A lot of people don't know that, but they were. Well, it took us 11 days to go across, and I was on the flagship, the USS James Parker, and it took us 11 days to go across. We wound up in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and we went to a place called Camp Cremore near Port Stewart there in Northern Ireland. And we stayed there only just a few weeks because, well, maybe, let's see, we got there, so we stayed there then about 3-4 weeks, yes. And when we got, because it would get dark at 10 o'clock, it would be daylight about 10 to maybe 1 or 2 o'clock, get dark again, we couldn't train right. So we were shipped over to Nottingham, England, right in the middle of Sherwood Forest, and I loved that because I took a bicycle and rode around all over. I'll tell you what, Adam, I never smoked and I never drank. And the guys who want to go to pubs and get in fights and all that, I said, heck with that. So I rode all over that country over there. I've been to the Major Oak and stuff like that. I was a history buff, you know. Anyway, we were there, took our training there, did some jumping, some field exercises, and we come up to June, and I think about the last part of May, we were shipped to a place called Folkingham Airport and Langley Air Force Base. And then they split up the battalions and fenced us in, and nobody could get in, nobody could get out except supplies and stuff like that, a lot of security. And we studied sand tables and checked our equipment and reviewed what we were supposed to be doing when we go there. When we went to, and they told us we was going to Normandy. On June the 4th, we were all ready to go, but it rained us out. And we laid there with our equipment on and woke up the next morning. So that next night, that next evening, about 8:30, 9 o'clock, telephone, you could hear the telephone ring in the hangar, and it said it was on. So we loaded up on these C-47s. It was about 10:15, something like that when we took off. And before we left, I'd eat a bunch of donuts and had coffee. Didn't think we could get too much. I was an old farm kid. Food was a mainstay for me, man, I'll tell you. So on the way over, I got airsick. And I get up, I hooked up, and I went up and stood in the door. And as I just looked down, and we're only about 400 to 450 feet above the water. And you could see all these thousands of ships crossing the channel. I mean, ships everywhere. It'd be foggy a little bit, then it'd be clear, then it'd be cloudy. But when we went over Guernsey Island, while the Germans had control of those islands, and the anti-aircraft started coming up, and I could sit here all day. You can't describe how thick it was. It was just amazing. It shot down some of our planes. I know in one of the planes, some of my buddies were set. They got shot, but they still went out. They wanted to get out of the plane. We had some that got shot down, landed in the water, got picked up and made the seaborne invasion too. That I wouldn't have liked. But anyway, we made the turn, went over the Cherbourg Peninsula, and the planes were all scattered out. You know, they had the Pathfinders who went in, were supposed to light up our drop zone. They got lost. We didn't have no Pathfinders. You could hear all the stories you want about Pathfinders. I know what they were supposed to do, but we never saw Pathfinders. I was 10 days when I jumped before I got back to my unit.
Wow. I
got mingled in with some British who were supposed to be cleared down around Caen. I was with the some 101st. They were supposed to be down around Carentan. That's 16 to 20 miles from their drop zones. But anyway, when I jumped, I could look down and see all this water underneath me, Adam. And they had flooded the Mederet area that river for about 10 miles, and anywhere from 3 to 4 feet deep, it turned out. So I grabbed my risers and started pulling, and I landed in a tree, a little churchyard, and at St. Clair, and scared to death. You know, if you're 19 years old and, you know, then all we'd heard about the Germans' machine guns and their 88s and all that stuff, you know. So I was, the British have a quick release, but we didn't. We were buckled. I couldn't get unbuckled, so I grabbed my trench knife, cut my suspension lines, dropped to the ground, run over to the hedgerow, and I got a cricket up there. And getting the hedgerow, and I had in my hand, I was going to go 1, then 2 would be the answer, you know, for friends. I said, I'm going to sit out here in the dark, go and click, then drum and say, hey, here I am, you know, I'll throw it away. Well, jumping ahead a little bit, I went back in 2011, and my old buddy was with me, come running and say, hey, Jake, I found your clicker. Yeah, sure. So he bought one, and he gave me one. I got 2 of them up in my jar up there.
That's really neat.
Anyway, I run to this hedgerow, and I sat there for about, I don't know how long, a period of time. Nobody around. And I had to be at them in probably one of the first planes, because everybody must have jumped beyond me, okay? I knew that we were supposed to jump and get together, but nobody around. And so I finally started walking down this hedgerow, come to a lane that went off toward the firing and toward the flight of the planes. And I started up that path, that lane, had 2 stone walls on each side. Now you don't jump over a stone wall unless you know what's on the other side. So I heard somebody coming, and I bailed over that stone wall, slid down this bank, and through the freshest big cow pile you ever seen. Golly, I had it all over my leg, my boots, and I'd give myself wet fur. But about a platoon-sized group of Germans walked by, heading back to where that lady said if I hadn't got hung up in that tree and I'd drifted another 50 yards, I'd have landed right in their yard.
Oh, wow.
So that was back in 2011. She said she was 14 years old, and I looked out the window. There's the chutes coming down, see them. And no, that was about 20 minutes after 12 midnight. And the Germans were bivouacked in their yard, and they were in our house. If I'd allowed, I wouldn't be here, of course. So I stayed down there until they walked by. I could hear them. And after they got by, just as I was laying there, I heard a noise, and I looked up, and no more than 25 feet above my head was a big horse glider. It was coming down. It was a British glider. They're big, and they turned like this and went into this field. Now those hedgerow fields are like about 100 yards long, 50 yards wide. And they had no fences and things. And when he hit that ground, he slid across, and he hit that other hedgerow, and that stuff went through there, and it just killed most of them, all of us in that horse glider.
Yeah, the glider casualties were outrageous.
I went over, I tried to, I said, what should I do? I didn't know what should go over there or not. I'm sure the Germans would have heard it, but finally I went over, and they were laying all over. But there was a couple of them that were still living, and I said, anything that I can do. And nothing I could do. I'm trying to get back to my outfit. That was my objective. I had 2 landmines, had 6 half-band blocks of TNT, had a gamma grenade, a composition C2 plastic explosive. I had bandoliers of ammo and hand grenades. I figured if I ever got hit with flak, I'd still be good enough, you know. But anyway, I took off. It was terrible seeing them sitting there. But anyway, I took off, and I met up with about 6 guys from the 101st. And they were about 16 miles from Carrington, from their drop zone. And I stayed with them, and we picked up a few other stragglers. And I stayed with them for about, I was the only 82nd guy there. And they sent out combat patrols. Guess who led them? And that was pretty exciting. Anyway, on the 11th day, I walked up this hill, and there was Lou Zeber from my company. He says, "Hey, where you been goofing off, Jake?" You know. So I got back to and that was on the 10th. 10 days after I had been in there with that group. Well, anyhow, roughly the next day, and I was a machine gunner, light machine gunner, and I got a machine gun back. I don't think it was mine, of course, because there were equipment bundles underneath the plane, and we got in these little flimsy boats. And we crossed this river area where we were, got on the other side, started down through this orchard, and the Germans opened up on us, and boy, we fought down through there. Bullets, machine gun fire, guys getting hit, and I'm carrying a dad-burned machine gun, and I had a fully stock carbine, but I couldn't use it or anything, carrying that 28 pounds that sucker weighs. So we fought down through there for about an hour or so. We come to coming down through here, and there's a crossroad. And on down beyond there was this big chateau, stone wall around it, and a big chateau. So there was a little hill here, so we stopped. And I dug a foxhole in here. The other guys dug in. We were spread out. We're spread out quite a long ways around here, the whole company and whole regiment area. Well, we fought for just about, I don't know how long. I can't, but I know we fought for hours, shooting back and forth. Mortars were coming in. All at once it got real quiet, and right out in front of my machine gun, this German medic got up, picked up a wounded German soldier, put him on his shoulder, started to walk away from me, and I yelled at my men to hold your fire because we're soldiers, we're not murderers. See, we had direct orders at them to take no prisoners for the first 10 days. Absolutely true. What we down to do with them? They're paratroopers. We're 6.5 hours in there fighting before the invasion started. And anyway, it got real quiet again, and all at once we heard a commotion. And up this road come 61 German prisoners surrendered to us. When we talked to those guys, he said, well, we found out you guys were paratroopers. We didn't want no more to do with you. That's what the guy, one Yankee said, we ain't paratroopers, they're criminals and convicts and all that, which we weren't. But if we had shot that medic, it never surrendered. I didn't know what the heck to do with them, so it took 6 men, two and two, and they took them back, put them in a big barn, turned them over to the rear echelon guys right behind us. I don't know whatever happened to them. Well, we went on to fight through Normandy every day. Mortars, they'd eaten white phosphorus bombs, tree bursts, mortars, and aircraft fire. Machine guns strafed us. Anyway, we fought, and I'll jump ahead a little bit. And on July the 3rd, 1944, we were crossing an intersection that we was fighting. And we crossed this intersection, and some 88 mortars come in, and it wounded very badly at Paul Potter, the guy who went in with me. The two of us enlisted together, and that was his trip home. And quite a few of our guys got hurt, and so we fought through there, and just outside of La Haye de Puy, which is Hill 95, the next day, July the 4th, 1944, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. I was told to take 24 of my men into this field and attack this hill, because they wanted to capture this hill so they could get free access to go to St. Lo, towards St. Lo. Now the 507 was up here, the 325 gliders was here. We were on a frontal attack, and the 505 was over here. When we got in that field at them, about 25 yards into the field, and found out it was mined, there was a Hitler Youth Division, as we found out later, sitting up on the hill, and they opened up on us. And in my squad alone, they killed 7 of my men. The Loach, Tanner, Blair, Vachons. And I'm right in that group with them, and why it didn't hit me, I don't know. Because I was right in a group with them, spread out like this. So instead of turning backwards, I got into this hedgerow. And I said, you know, I'm not going to make it. I could look up and I could see this machine gun, this machine gun fired from up on the hill. I would say it's about 300, 350 yards. Well, this time I had picked up an M1 off of one of the guys. I hated that folding stock. It was terrible. So I had never fired it. I had 1 round in the chamber and 8 in the clip. And I emptied it into that machine gun nest. And Adam, it got deathly quiet. There was no more firing. No birds, no wind, just deathly silent. Man, I was really shook up. So I know I must have wiped out that machine gun nest or scared them away. Or I didn't go up to see. So there was, behind us was a big over this area was a big dike, and I was in this. There was a big dike here, and I knew to get back. I didn't want to get back out in that field. I had to get up over that bank. So finally made up my mind. I would run for it. I got up over the bank and got back to my outfit. Well, we went on to fight at Bellefontaine. Well, of course we fought there, but we fought at Preto and all the areas up in there until July the 13th, 1944. And of our 130 guys of us that jumped in our company, there was 39 of us that went back, that got out. Now, I've had people ask me, says, how many battles were you in? I said, mister, when you're a paratrooper, you're in a battle every day. Every day. Because you got to remember, you're surrounded. And we're in there completely surrounded. So you're in a battle every day. And we had some excellent officers. The ones that we trained with. You know, when we lost some of them, the ones we got later, they were young guys.
Inexperienced.
What we call them. But we had some real good non-coms that went through all this training. But anyway, we loaded up on the 13th of July, went back to Utah Beach, and that was the first time we ever rode in a vehicle all the time we were there. We were in there 37 days. And we got back to Utah Beach, got on a LSD, went back to Portsmouth, and back up to Nottingham to our camp. We got back up in there about 2 o'clock in the morning, and you couldn't believe all the people were there. British. And they hated us when we first come there. Over here. All that, you know the story. Anyway, they give us a time we get, boy, I had this crap on me, and I tried to clean myself best I could and everything, but I must have looked terrible because I had the same uniform that I fought in every day. It never had a chance to take a shower. I never had a hot meal except for what I fixed for myself. Because I was an old farm kid. When I jumped in there, I had boiled cubes, and if I'd get in a cellar, I'd find a carrot or a potato or whatever. And I don't know, a lot of times I'd be sitting up in the, it'd be raining one night, and I was down in my foxhole, I put water in my helmet, took my plastic C2, about that big round, and light it. It's just like blowtorch.
Mm-hmm.
It won't explode. The guy said, "You're crazy. You're gonna blow yourself out." Well, I know you need a blasting cap, so I would heat the water, put my boiling cubes in, and I could hear my guy say, "Hey, somewhere, did you smell that?" I said, "I don't smell nothing." That's the only hot meals we had. So anyway, when we got back to England, we got a 5-day leave, and we went to a place called Blackpool, England. It was a recreation place, a buddy of mine. And we came back, and we made another practice jump. We had to make a practice jump every 30 days. And they made a practice jump, and then on September the 17th, we took off for Holland. On Sunday afternoon, bright sunshine. We were flying about 400 or 500 feet above the ground. Largest airborne invasion in history until they made the drop across the Rhine. And I got airsick again a little bit, so I went up and stood in the door again this time, but I didn't throw up. I did the first time. But I stood in the door and you could look down and see these people waving their orange lanyards at you. I got one back there. And they, you could see the people waving at you. Now I was in the only plane in the 440 transport group was shot down. Now I was in that plane. It's the only one that was shot down, and that's proof written. P-38's flying around up there. Anyway, that right engine, he's got the left engine on fire when he made this print for me. Matt Hall. Anyway, we all got out except the crew sergeant. He jumped with a flak suit over his parachute. He got killed, and the plane went on down and crashed in Weiler, Germany. And we hit the ground, that they plowed the fields, which would mess up the gliders, because the gliders had little wheels, and all they are is canvas and plywood and mountain. When I came back from Holland, well, I'll tell you that later. But anyway, I landed in the plowed field, and we took off. We fought on the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, and 20th, and on the 21st, we come to this place here in Den Hevel Woods. Now we didn't know they were in there, but that Jewish family was hid in the attic of that house for 25 months. There it is, right there, the picture of it. And that was the patrol I was with. Went down to them. We liberated that family. We didn't even know they were in there. We drove the Germans out of there, knocked out that Panther tank sitting up there in the corner.
Oh, wow.
There's Smith 109 flying over. Anyhow, that's Rosa sitting in the window. She was yelling, "Save our soul." Well, the guys came in behind them, got them, took them back up to Bergendahl, up to the old Groot Hotel area. And we went on to fight about half another day, and then the next day they took us back up to the old Groot, up where the Groot Hotel was. And that was on the 22nd, yeah. Well, we were sitting there eating K rations. I'd made a sled trench, and we heard the boom in the distance, and you could hear the artillery coming in. So we ran for our sled trenches, and when I did, Jack and Billy jumped in my sled trench, and I jumped in on top of him. That thing exploded. It killed him underneath me.
Wow.
Instantly. It banged me up pretty bad in my face, in the back of my head. I still got part of that metal in my head. And I'll tell you, it was. I laid there, Johnny Downs and John Dory picked me up, took me back to this field hospital. The doctor and nurse operator was taking metal out of me and everything. And they took me off the table, put me in a tent, and laid me in this tent. And I didn't. And about that time, a Metro Smith 109 came over straight to the hospital, killed that doctor and nurse on the very table that they just operated on me.
Oh, wow. Now, the same thing happened after you were injured, too, because there was a vehicle wreck where you narrowly, after almost getting shot, if I read that correctly.
Jack Camelli underneath me, and I went back to the field hospital, killed that doctor. Well, they got me back to England, and I got back there in late September. So I was in the hospital until December the 15th, and I went back to my base camp, and they were going to put me into the gliders. I said, "There's no way that you're going to put me in the gliders." I just didn't want. I never seen a glider in Normandy that wasn't wrecked. So anyway, they sent me back to the Ardennes, up to Reims, France, not the Ardennes, but Reims, France. That's where the 5-weight was, and they gave me my men back. And on the night of the 17th, we were in a hangar, or in big auditorium, like the lights come on, said, "Get back to your barracks because the Germans had broke through into the Ardennes." And so we scrambled around to clean our equipment because we had to get the Cosmoline and stuff out of our weapons and stuff. And they loaded us on these big cattle trucks. Now, we didn't jump in there, but they put us on these big cattle trucks. They wasn't the sit-down type. They were you had to stand, the long. We took off for Werbermont, and as we were going, the German Panther Division cut the column in two, because we left Reims, France, and the 101st came up behind us from swipes, and that was the convoy. And we were heading for Werbermont. Well, they cut the convoy in two, and the 101st circled went into Bastogne. And Bastogne area, that's where they fought all the time they were there. Now, we went on up to Werbermont, and we didn't want to get up there an hour after we were there. We're out fighting on the front lines. Well, you know the story of the 101st. No, I had nothing against the guys, but I had a lot against Eisenhower, because what happened, they fought in the Bastogne area, and that's where we were all over the place. We were at St. Death, we were at Stavelot, we were at on and on, and fighting to keep them away from Bastogne, because those were the big intersections of roads were. Anyhow, we fought every day, battles going through 23 below zero, coldest time in the history of Belgium. And I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit, Adam. We got on the 30th of January, 1945, we had a firefight with my men, and I pulled back into in these shrubs, bushes. Snow was about knee deep, and a sniper shot two of my men, killed them. And I was so upset because I lost two in Normandy the same way. They were out taking a crap behind the buildings. And I told Chuck White, I said, "We're going out and get that sniper." He said, "We're not allowed to do that." I said, "Well, I'm a staff sergeant, you're a private, we're going." We started walking out through that. All I had this time was my M1. And I'm walking along, I didn't go maybe 25, 30 yards. I'm not making a guess here now, but we just were walking along. And all at once I just had a chill, like it flew over me. I knew something was wrong, and I got to looking real slowly, looking around like that, and there lay this sniper pointing his Mauser rifle at me. All he had done is pull the trigger, he could have killed me. I just went, "Waffen it big and on the hole." He just threw down your weapons, put up your hands, and two of them jumped up in snow capes. Well, why the hell he didn't shoot me, Adam, or Chuck? There was two of them. Looked at the guys. We went up, and the Mauser was loaded too, buddy, I'm telling you. They looked like they were about 45 to 50 years old. They were older people. And whether I spoke to them in the German that they didn't shoot, I don't know why they didn't shoot. So I took them back to the CP, battalion CP, as prisoners. I went that night and I dug my foxhole. I woke up the next morning and I'm shaking all over like this. I knew that something was going to happen to me that day. That's weird, Adam. That's weird. I knew. About that time, a runner come down and said, "Sarge, you went up battalion CP. Mendez wants to see you, our battalion commander." I go up there and said, "Sergeant Jake," he says, "I want you to take your squad, get down through this lane. There's an 88 down in there, and we got to go through there. I want you to get down and try to knock it out so we go through there." I said, "Sir, I only got 6 men." He says, "You got to go." So I'm walking along this bank, and a sniper shot me right through the chest, went right in here, and came out behind my shoulder blade, knocked me off the bank. I was still conscious. I crawled up to the tree, and he shot the bark off just above my head twice. And I passed out. Well, when I come to, believe it or not, there was an American medic taking my boots off. They love paratrooper boots, you know.
and I had a 45 right here, and I said, you might get them off, but you'll never wear them. and he started crying. You know, I had most respect for a medic. He couldn't carry a weapon. You hire a medic right out in the middle of the battle. He's got to go out there and treat you. And I passed out again. Of course, I've never done anything. But anyway, I woke up in the field hospital. They had me, or field hospital, and they had me all taped up. Put me on this meat wagon, ambulance, and we're heading back to Liège to the 82nd Airborne Hospital. And as we're going along, there was 2 German, and there was another GI, and a driver, and myself. And my stretcher collapsed. There was arms along me on my stretcher. Why? I don't know. But maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then the ambulance rolled off the side of this mountain. It rolled over side, not just 2 or 3 times either. It went down this mountainside, turned upside down in the river, and it killed everybody in that ambulance but me. Now you figure that out. And I laid there. I could see my watch. I couldn't get out. It was 20 minutes after 12, about 20, 25 minutes after 12 midnight. And I laid there till about 6:30, and some GIs come along the road, seen the ambulance come down. They found me. It took them about 45 minutes to get me back up the mountainside. And took me into Liège, got in there about 8:30. I woke up the next day about 11:30, and that was my trip home.
Wow. Do you happen to remember the name of the aircraft you jumped out of in Normandy?
There was no names on them. They were C-47s. I got a plane here. I got a picture of a plane. They just had like that plane there. See, they just had numbers on them.
Right. The invasion stripes.
Yeah, we didn't have names on them. Some of them might have, but even in my recollection in our group, my plane was C4.
Okay.
Yep.
Because a lot of the aircraft we're going to be jumping out of are the original. Some of the original
Is that
aircraft
right?
that participated. There's going to be a formation about between 35 and 40 C-47s, and yeah.
Well, mine was a C, had C4. What does that say?
That one, the one on top, in the foreground is U5.
Yeah.
It looks like. I can't tell what the one.
But I know
is
that
now.
I know that when I jumped to Normandy, I know it was C4. And I got a picture of it.
Yeah,
somewhere.
the one up there over top of you, that's C4.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
And one thing about that picture, when he's really, he's got to go in the wrong direction. Okay, because that's St. Miraglice Villa, St. Miraglice Berlin, and I came in. It was to our left. So I got to get. When I stood in the door, I could see it, but I didn't have that bag below us either. But he says, "I'll do it over," and I said, "Hell, nobody knows the difference but me." You know? But there's it was I don't know. I come home. I stayed. I didn't get married. I didn't get married to 1946, and I had my first son in 1948. And my wife and I have been married 72 years now.
Congratulations again.
It's amazing. And I've met an amazing lot of nice people. And I get all kind of awards. And I don't ask for none of these. That's the Veteran of the Year award. And I like that one down there. It came in the mail, no name on it.
That's amazing. Well, they're well earned and well deserved.
So I go around and speak a lot to a lot of places, and I take a few books, and then I wrote another book too. It's here someplace, but and then I got some DVDs that I made of about the rescue. It's a story of the Jacobs family all the way through, and about how we participated together. And Bert now, he was 10 years old at that time in that house, and he's living out in Palm Springs, California now. And he'll call me, and we talk and bring back. He's the only one living in that bunch.
Wow. So I got to ask, do you have any Anything you'd like to say to the guys that'll be jumping into Normandy next year?
Do what?
Do you have any words of encouragement or advice for the guys that are going to be exiting the C-47s over Normandy next year?
Well, you know, it's different if they've jumped because of the prop blast. And it's different. If that plane happens to be climbing, no, if it happened to be going down a little bit, so many of our guys get hung up on the tail. You know, you jump out, and that prop blast blows your chute back here. Well, I've seen guys hung up on the tail. They have to get themselves loose and use that reserve, you know. So I know usually the C-47s will slow down. Hey, they shouldn't be going any faster than about 115 air miles. And it isn't like running out the tail end of a 130 or whatever.
Right.
And the only thing I could say is enjoy it. I've been tempted. What I wanted to do is go to Fort Benning and be a jump master. Train, you know, go up with them, jump with them, and they wouldn't let me because my health, my heart, lung, and everything. But it was they'd make you a master sergeant, which is a good rating in it at that time. And it wasn't now it wasn't sergeant majors and all that stuff. It was first sergeant was the big boss, and we had one was the boss. I'm telling you, he wasn't any bigger than I was, but he controlled the company. But anyway, I went back to Belgium, and we stayed at the Paradrome, and we were all. I got a picture of me all dressed up, ready to go. I don't know where it is around here somewhere, but they wouldn't let us go.